Hello, Shadow Era community, and welcome back again to State of the Era, the podcast presented by the A1 Alliance, bringing you the best Shadow Era discussion around. You're hearing the terrifically sexy voice of NinjaDucky. This week we've got a really great episode lined up for you guys where we're going to talk all about deck building, how to construct a deck, where to get ideas for your strategies from, and how to get a deck put together that's exactly how you want to play, that you can win with. Here to talk about this today, we have CwhitTastic.
What's up, guys?
We've got Otto7.
This is Sparta!
Noted.
Sparta.
We've got iClipse.
Hello, guys.
And we've got prolific forum deck builder Keaven.
There you go.
And I am told that... What is that?
I'm sorry. You know, it was me. You know, I will not explain because it would sound so ridiculous.
I got it.
All right. So anyway, back. Okay. So just so everyone is aware, the forum name Keaven that you all know and love is actually pronounced Kevin, which I just found out like 5 minutes ago before we started recording this episode. So that's who we've got on with us. To kick us off, before we get started with all the deck building talk, Keaven, we've never had you on before, so why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? You know, where are you from? How long have you been playing Shadow Era? And what's your favorite deck of all time?
Well, favorite, that's hard. Well, I've been playing, I think it's over a year now. I think it was something around 1.2456, something like that. I think it was updated shortly after, so I can't remember some of the older versions of cards.
Were there already rogues in it?
No rogues yet.
Yeah, then it's before 1.27 at least.
Yeah.
1.26 had rogues too, didn't it?
No.
Oh, it didn't?
No, they were introduced in one. I think. Oh, maybe I'm wrong.
They still had passive shadow abilities for Dark Law and...
All right.
Oh.
Who else was there?
Yeah, but the abilities only got changed in 1.28. Yeah, but it doesn't matter anyway.
Anyway, so you've been around for a long time, is the moral of the story. You remember Magia's 2 SE draw card. That's all we need to know.
My first deck posted, I think it's in my blog on the forum, was Magia OP.
I think that sums it up nicely.
The noob cube. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
And it had
good old
1
day.
copies of card.
Ouch.
Just a couple of allies, just in case I needed them.
So would you say you've come a long way since then?
Very far, yeah.
What would you say is your favorite deck of all time in Shadow Era?
I probably have a favorite deck for every hero, but
My decks are like my children. I love them all.
that's tough. Probably the first really successful deck I made was Berserker Boris.
I like that deck. That deck's fun to play.
Mm.
Kudos.
I surprised the hell out of TJ by swinging that through the gauntlet.
No, I mean, you just don't see it coming. Who does that?
Oh yeah, exactly.
You know?
When I first brought that out.
Does it use
Nobody knew
heroes?
what was coming.
Does it use allies, that deck?
Only lilies.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. Well, for the people who may not be familiar with Berserker Boris, why don't you tell us what the deck does?
So I think a lot of people tried it when what's now reserve weapon was dual wield first came out. Was trying to return that with Lily, and of course it was glitchy and it didn't work. And the first version where it actually did, I think it was, geez, I can't even remember which one it was. So it's built entirely around a solo weapon, Berserker's Edge style, with Boris, and using Rampage to survive the early turns. Just returning reserve weapons, recycling Berserker's Edge, so it'll, at some stage in the game it just basically starts as a 3 attack weapon, building up to 6, which can take out pretty much any ally, including sandworms. And almost a mill deck, really. Just hitting at the hero and letting the allies die offensively, even using Violet Thunderstorm for that extra chip damage, because some of the human allies will end up with like 1 HP, which you don't want to waste the durability on. And a big problem was the glitch on Violet Thunderstorm when an ally would still be attacked when it died from Violet Thunderstorm, so that would waste durability of your weapon. When that was fixed, it became viable, and it took me quite high in the ladder, and that was just after a reset when I did my run at the gauntlet. Took out Barker, which not many people had.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I remember the first time I saw somebody playing that deck, it just took me completely by surprise because I saw Boris, and so I was stocking up all of my like ally hate cards, and I was like, he just kept not. I was like, oh, you didn't drop an ally on turn 3, that sucks. You have a bad draw. Oh, you didn't get one on turn 4 either. Wow, you don't have one on turn 5. Like, jeez, man. Like, that's really bad. And then around like turn 6, I'm like, wait, is this a solo deck? I guess all these, like, crippling blows aren't going to come in handy.
And then you get the matches where they just stack allies and they all go within like 3 turns.
Yup.
Yeah, seriously.
But it was...
Getting Berserker's Edge up to such high attack and then healing off of it, it's a thing of beauty.
Or a thing of terror, depending on how you look at it.
We should say that it was, kind of familiar to the totally surprising Terradun solo deck we used to have.
Yeah, it ended up being more effective.
But
Mostly because it used Boris and not Turadun, but yeah.
why is
We're
it more
going to
effective?
tell Kate that you told that, and you are going to have her hate forever, but okay.
The number of times that I've knocked on Turadun on this show, I'm pretty sure Kate already hates me.
But I'm actually wondering why is Boris better than Terradun, because I'm not saying this because of the ability, but I'm saying this because Terradun has access to Evil Ascendant, which is a very good card for solo decks.
It's from the current meta. In previous meta where everybody used the Ladwin with Chris and like that, I think Evil Ascendant was super great. But now with so many Sound Wounds and Aeons outside, I don't know, without retreat, how you're going to deal with Neon.
Yeah.
The simple reason, like Aeon is usually quite easy to deal with Shield Bash. So by the time Aeon comes out, you've got a +3, +4 Berserker's Edge. You get that to 5 and do 5 damage, and you finish him off with a Shield Bash. So he's not actually that much of a problem. The reason why Human does it better than Shadow is purely for Lily. Instead of having to Master Smith a weapon out of your deck, you can return the reserve weapon and start a Berserker's Edge at 3 again, and Terradun just can't do it. You can't have enough weapons to deal with every ally that they deploy.
Isn't Special Delivery nice to have too?
It is, but Barker used it in his World Championship build, and I've used it as well, but I prefer Shield Bash. The synergy just works a little bit better, and you don't always need that extra damage on the hero.
Gotcha.
Yeah, okay, that's a good reason actually. And retreat probably helps as well.
Yeah, definitely. Being able to retreat an Aeon just to use your ability on another ally, then kill another one, so his Aeon solo is...
Cool. Yeah.
Sure.
Thanks for explaining.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and dive into the topic of the episode. So let's start out talking for a minute about what sort of resources people have to learn more about deck building in Shadow Era beyond just listening to this podcast. When you guys were learning how to build decks and building your first likely not very great decks in Shadow Era, where did you guys go to get tips and to learn more about how you should be building decks?
I know I went to 2 sources when I first started. I looked at the forums, and then I also went to top players. Like, I just looked for highly rated players and found them on the IRC and then asked them. Like, I bugged Razy a bunch. That was me.
Yeah, for me it's actually the most things that I learned was just by myself actually. It takes a lot longer than to learn, but it also goes that way. I started playing this game very early, and then I just massed games. Yeah, I played a lot of games until I get I got a really good feeling for one deck. Yeah, after that I took it to the forums, and then I saw feedback from just people over there, and yeah, then I learned it that way. And then of course joining A1 helped me making good decks for other heroes as well. Yeah, so basically just being in a guild helps a lot.
Yeah, for me, I found that my main source for sort of getting my decks up beyond the like crappy imitating other games that I've played level was getting onto IRC and playing matches with people on there, and they would, I'd play some of my crazy ideas, and then they would smash them, and then they'd be like, maybe you should try these other cards over here that are actually good, and
You can take up those campfire stories.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Actually, my first deck that I ever made in Shadow Era in like 1.24, I think it was, had campfire stories in it. Because my thought was that I would only use allies with really high HP with Nishaven, and then I'd use campfire stories to revitalize, to restore their health after I used my ability.
It sounds
Probably weren't
great.
the only
in
one to
theory.
make that mistake.
I
Yeah.
always knew that the Ducky's first deck would have campfire stories in. I mean, didn't you all know that?
That's just a feeling that you had about me.
I'm pretty sure my first deck had 5.
You hacker.
I actually read on the forums about a deck that used campfire stories. It was Blastworms or something called, and it was also Nishhaven with Sandworms. And yeah, using your ability from Nishhaven does 2 damage to your own Sandworms, and then he used campfire stories to restore these Sandworms. It was a cool
I'm
deck,
pretty
but
sure
it
I've
didn't really.
smashed that deck in quick match a few times.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, really,
it was-
why would you restore a sandworm and spend 2 resources? You know what I mean? Only a Nova hits it and die after Nishaven's ability.
Yeah, well, it was a fun deck to play. I wasn't saying it was a very good deck.
Oh.
Yeah. I will say though, one time I was playing against Figa, and he included campfire stories in a Boris deck, and it won him the game against me
No.
because I completely miscalculated. I was just like, okay, he had an Aeon out and some allies behind it, and I was like, okay, so if I hit it like with, I think I was hitting it with Magia's ability this turn, and then I'm gonna use Magia's ability again the next turn and use a lightning strike, and then this, Deathmage Thaddeus, and I was like, okay, I've got a perfect thing set up. I'm gonna board wipe him next turn, and then he played campfire stories, and I was like, oh. That doesn't work anymore.
Was
And-
it before you started using campfire stories yourself?
No, it was after after I stopped using it. It was not actually. It was actually not that long ago. I think it was like when 1.5 was new. Yeah. So campfire stories can be good. Just saying.
I'm
Okay, I
waiting
started
for-
imagining Ducky without 2 fireballs in his hand, just without 2 books with campfire stories. Okay, just throws it in the same turn.
Somehow that just sounds way less badass than 2 fireballs. I hope that doesn't catch on.
I hope it does. My rank's gonna shoot up.
All right, so let's talk about a little bit of a controversial topic, especially with newer players. Net decking, which is just when you go onto a forum or something and just copy someone's deck 100% and use it. Do you guys think that that's helpful for people in learning to build their own decks and a good training tool, or do you think that's something that people should avoid?
I don't. I think it's so helpful. Like, I don't see how. I mean, I guess I'm one school of thought, but I don't see how it would be a bad. Okay, I understand you could say like, okay, well they're not really learning, but in my opinion, they learn even more when you know what cards are good and you learn how to use those cards and you start understanding why those top level players use those top level decks. Because that's kind of what I did, and it got me better faster than if I would have tried to fumble through it on my own.
It's definitely the part. It's why. If you played a deck like that, you know, you see why certain cards are better than others. which you probably wouldn't see if you're just using your own deck and your own style. But if you're playing a deck from the forum that's already been tested, you see why it's a good deck, and you learn a lot from that. Just learning the psychology behind the deck will help you build other new decks for yourself as well.
Definitely.
And also,
That's
I
why I've
guess it's
started my YouTube channel and actually including videos of matches. Because I remember back when I was actually I was probably posting more decks than I was actually net decking myself. But when you realize how things are supposed to be played or how combos are supposed to turn out, being able to see that helps a hell of a lot more than just writing a few comments in the thread as well.
Yeah. Also, net decking in general, as a person, most people don't have enough time to make a competitive deck for every hero. And for some heroes, you can just net deck a deck from the forums if you want to use that hero in a tournament or something. Especially tournaments where you have to use multiple heroes, but you only have, let's say, 2 tested heroes. But then for the others, you can just net deck a deck from the forum and use that. So that's actually also very helpful.
And
Yeah.
I would also like to say that, like every proposal in your life, you just have to check who is saying it.
Yep.
Every opinion. If you just go into the forum and you find a thread with 5 answers inside the latest 2 weeks, I think it's probably not too wise to follow the deck, because you're probably going to waste your money. But if you're going to in the forums and you find a thread that has, 50 answers in the first 5 days, and most of them say that it's a great deck, then it probably is at least a good deck to start with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Most of the people who net deck, I think that they're new to the game and they don't have so much gold yet to buy all the cards. So it's probably better not to risk too much, because sometimes you find yourself with no gold at all, and you with a deck that you cannot win, so you cannot have any gold at all again.
So if
Yeah,
you ever see a deck named Serena Super Draw on the forums, you should not build it.
Yes, but I quite remember it being very, very accepted by the people in the forums. There's
Yeah,
so much love.
it's because people wanted rogues to be good so badly. But yeah, I agree with what you guys are saying. I think that it's really good, especially when you're just starting out with building decks and playing the game, to grab decks from people who know what they're doing, know what they're talking about. And even if you can't quite figure out how to make it win at first, you're removing a variable from the equation. Like you know this deck is good because there's someone who's doing really good with it. Now you have to figure out how to do good with it. And I think that's an important step in learning to play the game. And then once you know once you understand how that deck works, then you can start to remove parts of it and replace them with other things that you like better, and you can start to evolve, and then that gets you to a point where you're building your own decks.
Or
It's
you
also
just do what CwhitTastic did, who is one of the players with the fastest improvement, in my opinion. You just say, okay, who posted this name? I just follow this name in the games, and I just watch 10 games, and I get a picture of at least how about he has it in his mind, the person who posted, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you can
Awesome.
actually check their IGN and see their matches using a deck, it's the best way to go.
Yep.
True.
Learn really quick, and then you can stock them at home too, like call them and follow 'em
There's
around. It's really
there's
fun.
somebody at the moment who's stalking my matches. Keeps coming in. It's funny as, but I asked him the other day. I said, "Oh, he's stalking my matches," with a smiley face, and he says, "Yeah, I've got terrible connection, so I learn more watching your matches than disconnecting on my own."
That's awesome.
There you go.
I also wanted to say, when you're net decking in Shadow Era, a lot of the decks have several things in common, so it's easy to copy that part that's in common to a new deck. For example, allies. You use
Oh, yeah.
a set of allies, and you learn why they're good. Then you can just use a new deck with exactly the same allies, but just other abilities.
Yeah.
And you basically already have half a deck if you want to build a deck for yourself. So that also helps a lot when net decking.
4 guards. There you go.
Yeah,
Four
Yeah.
cards for anyone listening to start your shadow deck.
yeah, it's also
Okay,
4 Gargs
I-
and 3 DMTs, basically my
Yeah.
Yeah,
basic
it's
setup.
it's funny because there's just no shadow decks that don't do that. Like I'm trying to think of a single shadow deck I've built in the past like 6 months that did not have 4 gargoyles and at least 3 DMTs, and I
okay.
can't think of one.
I give a +1 to myself, for my
Wait,
vote at the 3 CC allies.
I knew you were gonna say that.
Yeah.
Oh, for those who maybe are just getting into State of the Air and haven't heard that episode way back when we first started doing this, we had a discussion about 3 cost allies and which ones we thought were the best, and the question was posed: if you could only pick one 3cc ally to have and all the other ones you could never use them, which one would you think you'd need to pick? And Otto picked Gargoyle, and we told him we thought he was nuts, but yeah.
Yeah, but
Appar-
the forums love me, accept this.
Well, I picked Jasmine that time, and I still stand by that opinion that Jasmine is better than Gargoyle.
I still think the whole entire meta of Shadow Era revolves around Aldon.
Yeah, I can't get away from Alden. Aldon,
That-
however you pronounce
That
it.
one card affects so much of the game. It's unbelievable.
But
Yeah,
what about
especially-
Kildor?
What?
Teldor?
That was definitely a joke. No.
Everyone's
didn't
like,
get it
what
all."
does he mean? Is this some kind of secret CwhIT Keldor deck that I've never heard of? Or is this posted in the forums? I need to go check.
Oh, it's awesome. Just you wait.
I expect
Keep the meta.
I expect to see some kind of like Keldor super draw deck showing up in the forums pretty soon. CwhIT.
Okay. Keldor super draw.
I don't know. You're the deck design master here.
I'll figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so back on topic a little bit. Otto kind of touched on this when he was talking about making sure you look for forum threads that have a lot of replies and where a lot of people are saying, this deck is good, these concepts are good. When you're looking at forum posts, though, are there any other ways that you might tell decks or tips from people if you post your own deck and people are offering you advice? How do you weed out the good from the bad?
Well, I think there are a few reasons. One reason is the amount of posts that person posting the deck, the amount of posts he has on the forum. Usually, if he has like 500 or more posts, it's a member that's already been there a while and he knows what he's saying. So I think that's a good starting point.
Oh crap! I only have like 180.
Well, but did you post a lot of decks already? So
No, not really.
oh, there you have it.
Well, so you're still a noob. We got it.
Well, then also the fact usually a deck with one time a card in it, and if it has that multiple times, it's not a good deck. There are of course, a few exceptions with certain cards, but in general, if you see a deck with 4 times one copy of a card in a deck, it's not a good deck. And then a third thing I think that's very important is where the deck is coming from. So, for example, if you see the list of the decks that were used in the World Championship, you can be sure that it are good decks.
I was gonna say a lot of times people will post like their success with the deck before they, like they'll say, okay, this deck got me 17 wins in a row or whatever. Like it's obviously got some decent stuff in it.
Yeah, crown tournament finalist deck or top 8 World Championships, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like, it's like buying something. You just have to know who is selling, what was he selling before, and what people think of him.
Yeah.
So simple.
So a guild member would be like a name brand.
Yeah.
I've got a few concept decks on the forums and some fun ones, and it's always mentioned that, it's a concept, or I'm either testing it or I'm completed testing it. I also rate all my decks. So the most competitive, I'll rate 5 stars, and the concept or fun ones might be 3 or 4.
That's cool. I'm sure that's appreciated by everyone.
So let's go ahead and talk about the actual art of deck building itself. First thing, one thing I see come across a lot in the forums, when especially new players will come out and ask, how big should I make my deck? Does the size of my deck matter? What's the optimal size? So let's talk about let's talk about that. Does deck size matter?
I think it's how you use it.
Sorry, I heard that wrong.
Okay. Well, this episode goes somewhere wrong, but I don't know where.
It's well, Raisy's always asking me to do an adults only state of the era, so I'll let you guys run with that.
Well, anyway, I think size really does matter, but
This is my favorite episode already.
oh crap.
Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, well, I think 40 cards is always the most optimal you can have, but sometimes I do think that it's not needed to be at 40 cards. I mean, it depends on the player as well. Some people just don't want to go over 40 cards, but I don't mind playing with a bit bigger decks. But I do think that my maximum that I would ever go is 44 maybe, and then only if I have enough draw engines in the deck to make it to make sure it really works and you always have an optimal draw.
Do you
So,
use
yeah,
a
and-
mill sucker?
Sorry?
Do you use a mill sucker?
I don't use Millstalker.
That was my trap question.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I don't use it, so I don't go over 44 cards.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Then you're doing it right.
Yeah. Yeah, anyway.
I think girls like it best when you use a 40 card deck. I'll stick with that first, and then I guess the only exception would be the mill soccer for me. I try to keep it around 40, and then that one jumps up to 49 to 50, depending on what I want to include.
When you had a bigger deck, you saw that the interest of girls was dropping.
Yeah, it wasn't my game wasn't as consistent with them.
Okay.
Oh god.
Oh God, what have I started?
Were you winning prematurely?
Yeah. Yeah, game was over in like 2 minutes. It sucked. It wasn't any fun.
Oh God. I agree with all of that.
I will not ask how you know to agree, but okay.
I think you want to stick as close to 40 cards as possible. I am willing to go over 40 cards by a couple if there are things that I need in the deck. Sometimes the extra utility you gain from those extra cards will end up winning you more games than the plus 2% consistency you get from keeping it down to 40 from 41 or 42. But definitely, unless you're building a mill stalker, you don't want to be chasing after 50 or 60 card decks.
Well, I've got one deck that's bigger, 52 cards in a Lance deck.
Really? Is it a rolling pin? Because it does sound like one,
That just sounds like a Lance who's compensating for something.
It's got 4 Bazaar, 3 ill-gotten gains, 4 bad centers, 2 reconnaissance.
Was it a deck you built or something you saw or
No, it's I call it Nagasha Assassin.
Oh yeah,
And,
right. That deck. Yeah.
Oh, I have seen that deck. I didn't realize it was 52 cards though.
Yeah, you need it with the amount that you draw. Needs at least 46. Otherwise, you'll just kill yourself.
Yeah, it's a mill deck, right? That uses lay low to force people to, and you use.
No, it's not. It's not mill. It's a lock deck.
Using lay low and Shrine of Geisha to pull the back into your hand again and again.
Is there a poison
that's
in
it.
there? It must be a poison in there.
Oh, what?
Poison.
Poison?
Sorry.
No. It's got weenies, Aldon, and lay low, and just recycle lay low with Nagasha Assassin. You need bad Santas and all your draw cards just to draw the Nagashas when you need them. And you can win the game in 3 or 4 turns.
And the rain delay?
It's in there as a support and backup. So yeah, I've actually only got two rain delay and two lay low, because all you need is 1 of each. And being able to return them in sequential turns is what wins you the game.
Interesting.
Yeah, interesting.
Did you post this on the forums?
Yeah,
it's there.
The
I
best
think they're-
match is the one versus Amber in the video on the thread, where the Amber player gets the perfect Amber draw, and I think I come back from 7 HP, and they had King's Pride, Jasmine, Aeon, and a Pure that had been hit once by an ankle breaker, and I had no allies on the board, and I turned the whole game around.
What about
Without-
against Shriek decks?
Yeah, totally vulnerable, and priests. But you've just got to change the way you play against certain builds. It can still rush.
And how many stars do you give it?
3 or 4. It's not that strong a deck, but it can surprise the hell out of people. It can still win matches. It's more of a fun deck. Wouldn't take it to a tournament unless I was trying to tech for perhaps an Amber.
Oh, cool.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about whenever you're building a deck, you just have this clean slate. You can build anything. What do you use as your starting point for figuring out what you want your strategy to be? How do you figure out a direction to go in when you're building your decks?
Do you mind if I add something about the previous question
Oh, go ahead.
about the number of cards? We should say for newest players who are listening that the reason why we used to stick around 40 cards is mainly, at least for me, it's the draw engines. You just need to draw your draw engine as soon as possible, so you will have it available to continue to be alive in the game and competing for the victory. First of all, it is this, and then you have just some very crucial key cards that are definitely going to be used in turns 3 to 5, which in most cases are the most important. Some key cards are draw engines, some key cards are weapons, like Jeweler Dream in an Amber, or Ill-Gotten Gains in Lance, or Sandworms in some Priest decks, and the Burn in Mage decks. Anyway, the point is that when you stick to exactly 40 cards, which is one of the big theories in Shadow Era, many players agree with this. It is that you have the most the biggest probabilities of drawing the key cards in the key turns. Sometimes I see my decks going from 40 to 42 because I just have some minimum 2 CC allies and 3 CC allies and some minimum key cards that I want to use, and then just some cards that I feel that are necessary to be viable against all heroes.
Well, it's also once you go over 40, in general, those are also decks that have Bad Santa in it, so you can quickly go through a lot of cards to have a bigger chance of getting the draw engine.
Yeah, true. Like in warrior decks.
Yeah, for example. I often have warrior decks that are a bit over 40 cards, even though Blood Frenzy is really important, but then I use the Bad Santa to... then I also have like 3 to 4 Bad Santas in the deck, so I still have enough draw. Well, but it's just a personal preference, of course.
Yeah, generally I agree that except my Millstalker deck, all my other decks are 40 cards to a maximum of 42. I don't remember if there's something with 43. It's usually 40 to 42.
Yeah.
I agree.
I'm about the same way. I think I have a few decks that have gone into 43 cards, but I always feel a little unhappy about that. Yeah, I feel a little dirty about using 43 cards. I won't go above 43.
It's hard to try and build a Logan deck that's less than 43.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, so starting point for building your strategy. Let's talk about that. How do you figure out what you're going to use, what the basic point of your deck is going to be when you start building one?
Well, for me, it's first thing you see when you build a deck are the allies. So usually that's also the first thing I add to my deck because they're just at the front of the deck builder. And I think having a good curve of allies is very important. So usually those are the things I add first, and then the second thing I add is usually the draw engine, because I think that's so very important. And then from there on, I just use filler cards. I mean, not really filler cards, but cards that are very specific to that hero.
There's a few ways that I'll actually approach a deck build. I'll usually get inspired by something before I start. So I might see something in a quick match or read about something on a forum and think, ooh, that's got potential. Like the Lalo lockdown was, I saw somebody return that with Shrine and Nagasha and thought there's got to be a way to abuse that. So that was the best deck that I could do for that. So it's definitely not overpowered. But always starts with one card. There's just something that I want to use. It's often an underused card, maybe Violent Thunderstorm or Mocking Armor or something that doesn't usually have a use. And I think, what cards synergize with that? And then I'll just start from there. If it's a serious build, I'll start with the allies. If I'm just trying to get the most out of one strategy or one card, then I'll just start with that card and go from abilities back and forth until I get something that looks like it can work, and then I just test the crap out of it.
Yeah, in general, a lot of decks start from a concept. For me as well, usually it's when I'm traveling or sitting in the bus or something, then I'm just thinking about the game, and then suddenly, oh, maybe I could do that, and then I make a deck around that.
I think for me at this point in the game, most of my deck building is just changing the meta for competitive play. I'm pretty boring. So like my last major deck change was adding 4 PB to my Zaldar and taking some cards out, and then adding some Sever Ties. And that was about it.
But that'll change once new cards come out.
Oh yeah.
You won't be able to do that anymore.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, no. When the new cards come out, I'm excited, and also like being part of the PFG is fun to start making new ideas and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm kind of the same way. You just look for synergy with combos. It starts there for me.
When the new cards come out, I think that we will probably see some great changes in the number of people who play competitively, in my opinion.
It's going to open the doors right up.
Although I haven't been a card game player before, I can understand how most of the card game players who found the Shadow Era quite easy to play in their iPhones, because that is how it became popular in the beginning, may find it a little bit difficult, at least in the beginning, to keep up with everything. I don't say that they will stop playing, but I think that it will change what we see now as competitive play. New people will come up, and people who we know may be less competitive than before. But we will see.
I don't actually see how adding a new set makes more or less people competitive.
It just separates people who were here for long ago, to know the game, from people who just have the grip of card games and can quickly get the grip of the new set, if you know what I mean.
It's going to almost double the card pool, so it levels the playing field for the people that haven't been playing but have a good understanding of the game versus the current tournament leaders. Because tournament leaders have almost got a disadvantage where they've got the meta set in their mind and will find it harder to build decks that utilize these new cards as effectively because they've got this meta set about, okay, I need this at turn 3, I need this at turn 4, and it's just a lot harder to actually open your mind and consider the whole set once it's almost doubled.
Yeah, you have one card, you put another card in, and you just have double the odds of combinations. If you have 2 cards and you put 2 cards in, you have 4 times the combination. If you have 200 cards and you put 150 cards more, you can understand what I'm saying.
You have one more combination.
No.
Yeah, well, but I while I agree, but the mechanics of the game don't change, so I still think that veterans are more at an advantage when playing the game, even with new cards being released.
Well, I think if I could restate what I think he's saying, it's that some people are good at the game because they're very good at analyzing cards and knowing, being able to figure out how to crack these new meta-breaking decks, and some people are good at the game by learning from those people and then perfecting their own gameplay through that. So when you have a whole bunch of new cards come out, the people who are good at sort of refining the experimental concepts will always lag behind the people who are good at coming up with the new concepts in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. in fact, we will see exactly how one person may change a whole meta. I think that this is going to happen. People who are gifted from thinking new combinations and new archetypes of decks will come on the surface, and okay, we'll just see. But that's my opinion.
It's why I always share everything I put up. If I'm ever able to find anything that does work, even in a lot of cases, I'll put something up that in concept works, but I'm already onto my next build. Somebody else picks it up who actually plays competitively and refines it. I'd rather that those changes or people adjusting to that playstyle happens faster so that we can get really into the depths of the entire set than just trying to refine it myself, take it to a tournament and surprise everyone and have a win with it.
I would actually prefer winning a tournament with a deck like that.
You're a saint, Keaven, because I would just take it and win.
I also think that I would love it more if the meta evolved more slowly, so you can enjoy it longer. If the game is figured out faster, I think it will stagnate also faster. So yeah,
as the card pool increases, the meta is just constantly going to shift there.
Yeah.
No, I like how 1.5 meta shifted. No, it had good shift in my opinion.
It's still shifting.
Different heroes. Yeah, it's still shifting. Different heroes. So many heroes that are becoming viable once a while.
And gets to the point where it starts to cycle as well. Like you go through quick matches around the 300 rank at the moment, and the heroes are completely different to what they were at the rating reset.
Yeah. The full cycle is when we see Gravebone again being tier 0, maybe.
I don't think that we'll ever achieve that state again. I've tried, and you can make really good Gravebone decks despite, there's this sentiment going around the forum that people are trying to figure out how to make Gravebone work, and I don't really understand that because it's very easy and he's very good. But, yeah.
Well, post your deck, Ducky, because I still don't think Gravebone's very good at the moment.
I've posted 2.
Oh, those.
I posted
I dropped about 30 points trying to test those.
Because I've had this exact conversation with a number of people, and Killtrend has his whole big thread of trying to make Gravebone work in 1.5, and people are all brainstorming, and I'm like, guys, here's decks that work, but it doesn't seem to have affected the meta in any way.
I thought they were like the next Serena Super Draws.
It's no, they're actually real legitimate decks. The one deck that I posted, the control style Voice of Winter deck, I actually used in the World Championship Swiss rounds 3 or 4 times, and it won every time I played it.
There you go.
So they are actually good decks, but no one pays attention. Okay.
I try and avoid mages because they're the strongest, I still think.
Well, thanks to here's a shout out for Jackie. Thanks to Jackie, though. Speaking of changing, new heroes coming up and stuff, I've really enjoyed playing Victor a lot lately. Jackie came up with a really cool deck, and I just tweaked it just slightly, a couple cards to fit the quick match meta a little bit, and I predict Victor to be pretty strong in the last little stretch of 1.5.
And I think that you are quite modest to not mention that you are right now number, 6. Whoa.
No, number 2 now. Yeah.
Oh wow, God. Okay, sorry. So it is number 2,
Yeah. Busty, if you're listening, I'm coming for you, buddy.
Oh yeah.
How many points below Busty are you right now?
He's at 363 and I'm at 360.
Oh,
that's one match right there.
Yeah, one good one. Just need to snipe somebody.
I saw that one coming.
That would be awesome. I want to see Busty and CwhitTastic playing a quick match game.
Ooh, that's fun.
See who gets the top spot.
To be fair, if I was Busty, I wouldn't accept. We wouldn't want Busty to put pressure on Busty.
Oh, that's true. That's true. I probably wouldn't either if I was him. Anyway, we're getting. As much as I do love how our topics and stuff drift in the state of the era, deck building. Let's get back to that. So, starting point for building your strategy, kind of like what everyone was saying. What I do is I'll usually figure out what it is I want the deck to do. Do I want to, rush down on the opponent, or do I want to maybe control the board with burn cards and Voice of Winter, or what is it I'm trying to accomplish? And I put those cards in, and then once I figure out the cards that are essential to the strategy that can't change, then I start filling in the extra slots with other cards and moving those around and trying to figure out the cards that will make that deck actually tick.
I kind of agree with most of the things that you people said, but it would be really difficult to describe, the whole strategy of it. It probably would be difficult even if we spent 10 shows about it. I think that I would like to tell people to visit some of the great articles that we have posted on Project Omega. It would be difficult to just pick one because I had various ones in my mind, and it would be unfair for the rest, to not mention them. So take a look at Project Omega for the articles posted by great players. The general idea is you think how I want this deck and how I think this deck and this hero how he can win. Does he rush? Is he aggro? Is he passive? And if yes, then I need early strong allies. Do I need later strong allies? Do I have some key item cards or item destruction cards? You have to imagine the exact story of how your hero is going to win, and most of all, how your hero is going to win in the current meta when there are specific 3-4 most popular heroes than the rest.
Actually, in relation to that as well, there's a few of us working on a deck anthology project at the moment, and I've just posted up an archetype tier list for each hero, so that can help new people, especially if they want to see where the heroes are strongest, just by being able to look at the tier list for each deck archetype for each hero. They can see spread. And
is there a thread about it?
Yeah, it's in strategy forums.
Oh, so I expect that you would post a link for everybody to see at Sote episode.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
people visit the thread.
It's only a couple of days old now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, new site. Yeah, I haven't even known about this, so
Yeah, I think
that's good stuff.
I read about it this morning.
It's based off Soothsayer's sort of ways to play, and roughly based off the tier listings from Witsky's hero guides as well. So yeah, that's a good way. And until I actually put that down and looked at the spread, it's interesting to look at the allies. If you want to try and build decks around it, you can actually just look at your ally, see where he sits, cross column, up column, against other heroes, and yeah, that helps you pick your allies, pick your abilities based on strengths and weaknesses.
Was it do you mean the table with all the heroes in it, and then the different playstyles they have?
Yeah, so top column is all
well,
the playstyles, and heroes down the left.
When I was reading that, I just got the feeling that there are still so many areas in Shadow Era that aren't discovered. Like for example, deck destruction, that you had it rated in your tier list, I think.
Yep.
And well, there are only a few heroes who are actually even capable of doing that. So yeah, there are still a lot of things that can be improved, I think.
That's it. There's blank fields for the heroes that it's just not viable, and almost half the grid is blank.
Yeah. So yeah, I was thinking like, oh, that could be a cool way to expand the game later on.
Anyway, back on topic again. This is one of the more sidetrack-ridden episodes of State of the Era, but that's why
fun. It's a fun one.
I
like
agree
it when it happens.
I do too. But usually it's funny because usually when we get really sidetracked, there's a very easy way for me to just sort of transition and pretend like it was what we planned on talking about the whole time. But these are just like going so far out into left field that I'm just have to be like, okay, well, let's go back to the topic now because there's just no good transitions.
Okay.
Ha! We're taking it over.
No! My show! Where were we at before we started talking? Okay, so
or something like that.
Yeah. If you guys want to talk about size mattering again, feel free. I'm sure there's a lot to say on that subject. We should probably get some of the female Shadow Era players in here to express their opinions too. To be fair.
Yeah, start a forum thread.
All right. I'm probably, I think I might just do that right now while we're talking.
Oh yeah, do it.
All right. Anyway, so let's talk about testing the decks. We've talked a little bit about getting decks put together, and et cetera, et cetera. But then you need to take your deck and you need to test it to make sure that it's not a giant pile of crap. Because let's face it, a lot of times whenever we build our decks, we don't really consider a lot of things, or we have wrong ideas about how they're actually going to work out, and then you go play them and they just kind of fall on their face. Or maybe they have like a certain matchup that you're like, oh man, this deck works totally great when I'm trying to kill mages, and then Gwen comes along and you're like, oh, yeah, I didn't think about that.
Yeah, and every
And of course
time
you
you
get
change your
10
hero,
Gwens in quick match.
yeah, exactly. When you change your hero, you just get the 10 consecutive games of the non-wanted hero. For God's sake, how does this happen?
Every time.
Yep.
Yeah,
Actually, I have to be honest, I'm guilty of causing that to happen to people because I will, whenever you play quick match at a high rating, I'll go and I'll figure out what everyone's playing. Like during the rating reset, everyone was playing Aladwin and Zaladar. It was like all you ever saw. So I'll just sit down and specifically make the deck that's going to kill those decks, and then I'll play that for like 10 games.
You do know
Takes
we all
way
hate
too
you
much
now.
time.
Yeah, I know, but it's cool. It makes me win, so
It's a
whatever.
quick match troll.
But yeah, so whenever you're going out and testing your decks, you have this new shiny deck, you take it in a quick match, or you take it into IRC, play with the people in IRC, play with guildmates, whatever it is you do to test. What is it that you're looking for when you're playing these games? What are you watching your deck for?
Wins.
Just if it wins?
Yeah.
That's pretty
Win-loss
much it.
ratio.
Weak spots.
Yeah, I agree with that. Expand on that. What do you mean by looking for weak spots?
I mean that if you are after a certain level where you have the complete picture of the game, okay, so that you have all the cards and you have experimented sometimes with all the heroes and all the cards, in the past. So you have some quite good experience to start a deck and an idea of your own. I think that at least 60% of your deck is pre-made, unless it is a solo deck, a completely unique first-made solo idea for a deck. All the other decks who depend on allies are at least 60% same with the previous one existing. So that you have some key cards that you have to put inside in order to win in a different way than the other people did before, and so that you will not have so many anti-key cards for your cards. So what you need to figure out is, okay, I have my standard part of the deck, and I have my new stuffs, which I think that are very important to win, and now I just have to test, are these better than what I had before, and how do people use to counter them? Are the counters popular or non-popular? And what do I do when I think that my key strategy is distracted? Do I have a plan B? So you just search for your weak spots, and then you see if your key cards are quite good or they are quite crappy, so you don't want to take this deck for any important game.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. What my specific method for that is, I always, whenever I take a new deck into testing, I sort of make a note, like I'll write down in like a Microsoft Word file or something, every time that the deck wins or loses, and I just make notes of things that were particularly difficult, and lost to Lance because I got a bad draw because I didn't draw a portal on time, or lost to somebody else because I didn't draw Nova on time, or whatever these things are. And then you start to notice trends, like maybe I'll play 5 games, and 4 out of those 5 games I'm like, I didn't draw a Shriek in time, and I'm like, well, maybe I should add extra Shrieks because clearly I need them, and that sort of thing. I try to make notes of cards that I wish that I had at certain times, or things like that, or cards that I draw consistently and I never need them, and I sort of tune my decks that way in the playtesting.
Do you make big notes?
It depends on what phase of testing I'm in. Like if I just built a new deck and I'm just playing a couple games, I just make little quick notes.
Because I just imagine you with your book and you've written down at every centimeter, you're like crazy. But then you just have a book of, I don't know, campfire stories.
I can see you're coming after me with this one, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm going to hunt you for the next 10 episodes. And then suddenly I'm not in the Sote team anymore.
Yeah. We'll see. I have ways of dealing with people like you.
Oh god. So you were saying?
Anyway, yeah. So
Yeah.
everybody else, what do you guys look for during your testing games, and then how do you deal with that?
Well, for me, it's just I play quick games and then I see why I lost or why I won. For example, if I play versus a specific hero and I just got slaughtered, then probably it's a good thing to change my deck. But then if I lose a game, but it was actually a very close game, then usually I say maybe I just played something wrong, or I sacked a card wrong, or I just did something wrong in the game, and that's why I lost. And if that happens, usually you just have to test your deck more and gain experience with it. Yeah, so for me it's just the way games are played. Sometimes you know in advance that very specific heroes you'll just lose to. For example, if you're using a very control-heavy deck but with no item destruction, then you face a Millstalker, yeah, then you know that you're just doomed. But if you play versus a hero you think you should have won and you lost, then it's probably best to see at why you lost and then change your deck accordingly, or just change your playstyle if you think that's the reason why you lost. In general, I don't think it's that after playing one game, you have to change your deck. Usually, it's just playing, for example, 5 to 10 games, and then see, oh, it's always that I lose because of this or that, and then it's best to change, but not after one game, because it could just have been bad luck or inexperience with the deck.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you lose 5 games straight, it's a really good indication. I wouldn't play any less than 5 with a new deck before making any changes.
What do you guys consider to be like the minimum amount of? Because obviously one game can just be freak luck, and 100 games is going to be like really strong indicator. But what do you guys usually shoot for when you're just testing random decks?
Before I change one card, or what?
Yeah, how before you change one card, would you play one game and go, oh, I need to change this card, or is there like a set number of games that you have, or
5 to 10 before you change a card, and 50 to 100 until you know a deck's solid.
Jeez, you test a lot. Yeah, I was gonna say like 30 at most for me.
Yeah, I do the same, but I don't usually do them consecutively. I will just play 2 or 3 games. I have, I don't know, 37 cards, let's say, that are the fixed ones. And I have 3 to 5 spots, for the rest. And I have 4 cards with 1 or more copies that I might took with me. And I play 2 or 3, 4 games, then I get bored, I change some of them, then I come back. And in the end, I get the picture, but I cannot just play, 30 games just to test consecutively. 30 games to raise in ratings with pre-made the top deck, yes. But I won't play testing 30 games in a row.
I also think in general it's the way you lost. If you lost because you forgot to add something to your deck, then it's just best to change it immediately, of course.
Yeah.
So if you're playing and then it's like, oh, I got no draw engine in my deck, yeah, then basically the best.
That might be a problem. Or with Painful Smile doesn't have Novas in his match decks. Saying.
Or Daggers of Armageddon.
Yup. Love you, Painful.
Yeah, we love you.
Yeah, that card's overrated.
Which card is overrated?
Nova.
Oh, don't even give me that. Nova's awesome. We can talk about Nova if you want to talk about Nova. It's amazing.
That was a joke.
Okay, good.
Well, in general, you do see decks with less and less Nova these days. Often decks have 2 times Supernova in it, or even no Supernovas if you use
Yeah.
Portal.
It's possible.
It's actually becoming more popular to not have Novas in your deck because, for one thing, if you find yourself in a matchup against another fast deck, like an Amber deck or a Mage deck, you a lot of times can't afford to play a lot of Novas because you're going to hit yourself as well. So if your opponent gets a little bit ahead of you, or both of your healths get down to a certain level, you can't play it because then they'll just finish you on their turn. And you also see that people have gotten very good at avoiding board wipes to make them like as little impact as possible.
Yeah, true.
So people have stopped playing a whole lot of Novas because they find they never actually need to play them, and they always end up sacking them off. But the reason why I don't subscribe to that philosophy is because if somebody figures out that you don't have Nova, they can really screw you over. Like if I'm playing against a mage player that I know for a fact they do not have Supernova in their deck, that means I'm free to just completely flood the board with allies. Like I don't have to worry about it at all. And I think that a big part of why running with no Novas works as well as it does is because people assume that you do have it.
Yeah.
And so then they play accordingly. But if they knew you didn't, you'd be in trouble, and I don't like having that possibility out there.
One thing I find when trying to use like a Aeon Earthen Protector is turn 6 you drop an Aeon, and if it survives, you'll want to drop an Earthen Protector on turn 7, but you don't have enough resources to buff it above a Supernova. So you'll want to wait till turn 8. The best turn, if you can, on a mage to try to land that combo is to drop your Aeon on turn 7 and your Earthen Protector on turn 8 so that you can in the same turn buff it to 6 HP, which will resurrect your Aeon if they do Nova.
Yeah, that's actually good advice.
Because losing an Aeon and an Earthen Protector is death.
Yeah. So yeah. What was the original point again? This is happening a lot this episode. I love it though. I'm pretty sure that was not. I think that was like the sub point of the sub point.
No, it was how many games we play when we want to test.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I was actually going to say, for me, it depends on how new the deck is. Like, if I put together a deck that it's a fresh concept that I just came up with, and I run out and test it, I may play 1 game or 2 games and go, oh man, this card does not fit, or I don't like the effect that this, having this many 4-cost things is having on my resource curve, and I might change it really immediately. And then once I do that a few times, just like 1 or 2 games, change some cards, 1 or 2 games, change some cards, then I'll start going longer as the deck becomes a little bit more stable, until eventually I'll eventually get to that point where I'm just not changing anything after playing like 20 games, and then I'm like, okay, this deck is clearly solid.
Yeah.
Every deck has a number of cards that make up the strategy, and hopefully anywhere between 4 and 8 cards that you can interchange to tech certain options.
Yep.
Something to add just for people who are listening, or especially newer players. Once you make a deck, don't be afraid, even if you've like, oh, this is perfect. It's got a 4-to-1 win ratio. It's awesome. Don't be afraid to change it if you need to, because the game changes. Like just a small example, like when I was doing the recent the rating climb with my Victor deck, or with Jackie's Victor deck, or Jackie's Victor deck, my bad.
Jacqui?
Yeah,
Really?
No, it is Jackie.
Yeah, Jackie.
Yeah.
My bad, dude. I know Jackie. I just messed up. But anyway,
yeah.
I changed out 2 Leyline Nexus, and I put in 2 Spell Eater bands just because there's so many Alad. So just because the deck's tuned doesn't mean you can change it. Just a heads up.
Oh, and by the way, about what we said a little bit before, about the number of the cards, I would say that most decks would probably win most of the games with 40 cards. But there are usually some popular heroes which make you include 2 anti-key cards of what they hold. For example, there are so many more streaks around when Millstalker is very popular. Like the end of previous era before the resets. So many Millstalkers. I know that you are watching iPhone. Anyway, and there were times where people had 3 leyline Nexus and then not so many again because lands became less favorite and Portal Magi became popular. And then it was Millstalker, so many more streaks. And it's like that. You probably have 37, 30, 38, or maybe even 40 cards that would win you most of the games. But you find out that if you don't include those specific 2 anti-key cards, you are always going to lose against this particular popular hero of this meta. So you just have to include them, and you just have to go above 40. At least with some heroes, not all of them.
I've actually lately been noticing that almost no heroes run lane line nexus anymore. So I think it's quite safe actually to start running some of the big armors again.
Well, not anymore. You just ruined it.
I'm sorry.
But he's right.
For example, when I use my Zana deck, it's something a play that I in the past would never do is play a King's Pride on an empty board because I just know it's going to get lane line Nexus. But now I actually play King's Pride just on an empty board, or even when my opponent has board control, as long as I know that the armor isn't going to get down in one turn. But now, for example, if my opponent just has a Gargoyle in his hand and I have no retreats plus an ally, I just drop a King's Pride because I'm almost certain it's not going to get destroyed. And that's a play I wasn't able to do in the past.
I like my recent Zana build. I'll often drop the King's Pride. Depends what resources they're sitting on, but if they do have a Leyline Nexus, I've got a Lily in my hand. So next turn, I've got a King's Pride back in my hand and a Lily on the board ready to buff up to 5 attack.
Seems like you like Lily a lot. Lily's cool.
My favorite ally.
I agree with you.
I can tell.
Sweet.
Why run 10 items when you can run half as many and just put 4 lilies in and you've got an ally as well?
Oh, well, because you have to draw the item in the first place. I've actually run over this a lot with people in my Gwen deck, that Woodland Aggro deck that I posted. A lot of people keep saying, why would you run 2 Golden Katars? Why don't you just kill the Golden Katars and add 2 more lilies and you can get more Soul Seekers?
Gwen's different because of her ability. She needs weapons in hand.
Mm-hmm.
And when she needs them now. Not 1 turn later.
That ally's not going to last because it's going to be the only ally on the board.
Yep. But I mean, that's generally the one of the issues I have with running like 4 Lily in a deck is that I would just rather draw the item I'm looking for in the first place. Because if you draw Lily early, that doesn't do anything for you. But if you draw the item you were looking for early, then that works.
That's a little bit of eye candy.
I suppose there's that.
It's also so that if you aren't maxing out the item you're running, returning it with Lily is more costly than just playing a new item.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She increases your hand size by 4. Like if you've got 4 of her in your deck, you've effectively got 4 more cards because you can reuse 4 items if you time it right.
Yeah, as long as the ally doesn't get killed right away.
That doesn't always matter, especially like in the Zana deck where you can heal up. Sure, Lily's going to die, but she's going to tank your hero a little bit. If you've got other allies on the field, great. If you don't, you're probably in a situation it's not going to be able to come back from anyway.
Yeah,
but
I mean that's how I use her in my Gwen deck too. You know, I drop Lily on the field, and she's a distraction. They probably have to kill her, and that's just 4 damage that Gwen didn't take, and I got my item back, which was really the point in the first place.
Yeah, I agree, but you have, I guess, 4 lilies in your Gwen deck.
No, 2.
Okay, 2. Anyway, but you have many bows, so that you know that in the end you are going to have a bow in your hand. The problem with Lily is that if you just remove some allies to find space for Lily, what happens is that on turn 4, if you don't have another ally, you will end up having to think, do I want really to cast Lily, or do I want to keep her for my key items? For example,
you can't replace allies with lilies. You got to replace items. So if you need that item early, then you use the item. If you need that item multiple times, like Ghostmaker or the King's Pride, you add more lilies.
I would like to make an argument about that. I will not say if I agree or disagree, but I will not make the argument because I'm going to play in the Siege and I'm going to keep my secrets for me.
Okay, that's mysterious of you. Right now I have this image of Otto with like a cloak and a hood like covering his face, and he's like, I have a secret, but I'm not going to tell you what it is.
Because I'm creepy.
And then he just sort of disappears into the shadows, and you don't really know what just happened.
That scares me, Otto, because you're a surgeon in real life, so do you keep like ways to save people from them, like other doctors, just to keep it to yourself?
Just gotta avoid
I
lawsuits.
missed that.
Actually, this is starting to become a clear picture because Otto said in a previous episode that he had a gravedigger's cloak in real life. Yeah, so maybe he really does walk around with the gravedigger's cloak, hood concealing his face, just like in that art.
Wasn't Jack the Ripper a doctor?
Uh-huh. We're on to you, Otto.
One of you just look behind.
Anyway.
That was impressive, whoever that was.
That was dark.
Yeah, you scared me.
That's the sound that I make right before I cast 2 fireballs in, just to defend myself.
So that's the sound I make after.
It's like the sound of the fake Michael Jackson video in the YouTube.
Yes. That's what I was going for.
Nobody else has seen the video. Yeah, probably.
Right. Anyway, everyone who did got it. But anyway.
Okay.
All right. So last topic that we have set up for today. How do you know when your deck is finally completed?
I go off of the win ratio. So when I get it to 4-1 or 5-1, then I'm happy.
Doesn't that also depend on which rating you're playing?
That is a good point, iClipse. Okay, I'll rephrase that.
If I'm playing,
when I can win 4 out of 5 tournament level games with the deck, then then I'm happy with it. Or if it like anything above like 300 or.
Well, because if I'm playing versus players that are actually as good as me, I'm happy with a lower win rate actually. If they are using their very best decks versus me, and I'm using my deck that I should be happy with, I'm thinking 2 out of 3, and I'm really happy.
I guess it depends on matchups too.
If I can enter a quick match against any hero and not go, crap, it's complete. Well, but as soon as you get that matchup where you go, I'm gonna lose. I've got work to do.
I have to disagree with that a bit. I mean, even my best decks always have one matchup, or at least one matchup that's really, oh my god, no, I hate this matchup.
Yep. For example, I was actually going to say the same thing.
For example,
I mean, in general, rather than one bad matchup. But if you've got half,
but for example,
the top tier hero's bad matchup.
Magia is considered a top tier hero, but if I'm playing Magia and I see a Gwen, I still cringe. Or when I'm playing my Zana deck and I see a Magia or an Aladdin, I'm still like, oh no. I know I can win it, but it's going to be very, very hard.
And that's the thing is, I think the way that Shadow Era is designed, and I say this all the time, but because it's a game of hard counters with no sideboard, you can't escape, I think, having bad matchups. Like there's, like iClipse said, you have Aladdin and Magia, who are both considered really good top heroes, but I have a Gwen deck that annihilates them like 9 out of 10 games, just like good game. And anytime I take that Gwen deck and I see a mage on the other side, I feel really happy and giddy. I'm like, yay, I just won, because that's Magia. So there's no way that other player can feel good about the matchup. But it's not like Magia's not a top tier hero.
I agreed with that until I discovered this Victor. Honestly, maybe I'm just high on it right now, but I'm not scared of any hero with it.
I am going to play you until I find the matchup that Blows
I
that
keep-
deck away.
I can't think of. There's really no hero out, or nothing like out right now, at least that does like overwhelmingly well against it. Like I don't know.
What about Gwen?
I rape Gwen because I have Sandworms and Aeon.
How about Zana?
Zana and Jericho are actually the toughest matchups in my opinion for it because it also depends too, like if I have Layla Nexus in or not. But if I have Layla Nexus, then King's Pride's not that big of a deal, so Priest becomes less. But if I don't have Layla Nexus and I'm using my Spell Eater version, then it's like a 50-50.
Well, but in general, versus Victor, I just drop more fatty than he can handle.
That's hard to do.
You can lock the board with Death Trap. You don't have enough resources.
Yeah, I can pretty much. I don't have any problems with that. I have Flaming Arrow, Poison Arrow, my ability, and allies out most of the time. Like it's just not a problem for me that I found.
Yeah, I agree.
You're
Fatty's
using an arrow or a trap?
I don't use traps. I use arrows. Actually, and then again, just giving all credit to Jackie about this, but he came up with this. But I just played it a lot. But yeah, it's arrows, not traps.
Oh, yeah.
It's really cool. It's amazing. There's nothing I can't handle.
if Victor could play Shadow Font, he might be invincible.
Oh my god, that'd be awesome. But honestly though, there's a lot of times when like I can store up a lot of energy and still maintain the board with arrows and ability and not ability, arrows and bow and allies.
I totally believe that.
I'd be curious to play a match after because the Zana that I'm using at the moment has 4 Tainted Oracle, 4 Tidal Waves,
Uh-huh.
2 Ghost Makers, 2 King's Pride, 4 Lilies, and Earthen Protectors and Aeon. So
That'd be really interesting. The cool thing with that, I think that why it does decent versus Priest and why it's a pretty even matchup is because I enjoy Tidal Waves because I always have Tainted Oracles out too because I run 4 by Tainted Oracle, so I don't have a problem with Tidal Waves.
yeah, it's the losing Sandworms that are going to cost you.
Yes.
Yeah, but
yeah.
you know, what about Millstalker? Because I know you cannot handle this.
That's true. Mill is tough. I was lucky to only face 2 of them, and I went 1-1 versus Mills.
Have you got retreats for your Sandworms?
Yeah, I used retreat on. I have 3 retreats in it, so I did retreat on. I did 1 priest on the one I won. I used it once on Priest of Light, and then the other 2 times on Aeon. And so I'd have 3 Sandworms sitting behind Aeon getting pumped, and then retreat Priest of Light back and forth to take away Shadow Energy, and I eventually just had
Yeah,
ton
but
of
what about Crescendo? Because if Victor wins over Millstalker, the Millstalker is doing it wrong, really wrong. Because he doesn't only have the capture praise, he does have the Crescendos for the same reason.
I definitely wouldn't say this was the best Millstalker ever in the world. It was
Okay.
pretty low rating, and also though to be fair, I did have Leyline Nexus in the deck at that point, so I had the Crescendo covered too. But I did lose though too. I lost one to like a 200 rated Millstalker. So yeah, that's definitely a hard matchup too.
Hmm. And what about Amber?
Amber is another one that's like, again, it depends on the type of amber. If it's like more of a rush amber, or if it's like a slow control amber, or slow, not slow, but slower. But
Yeah.
I have a higher win ratio against Amber than she has against me.
Because you find mostly rush, right?
It's half and half, but honestly, it's not too bad because you can heal so much against Amber because human allies are so much easier to heal off of.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I have retreat for when she cripples something, and then Sandworm's actually great behind Aeon against Amber is really cool because they have to have retreat. But a lot of times when they don't have it, like I'll just have Aeon out and then I'll have Sandworms behind it, and Sandworms can just eat tons of durability off the weapons and really easy to control the board. Or I have Jasmine too. Jasmine's great against.
Yeah, Jasmine behind the neon is the best.
Yeah. It's not a disadvantage matchup at all.
I prefer
Yeah.
Earthen Protector behind an Aeon.
Yes, that's true, but I would prefer in many matchups to have a Jasmine, because once your opponent has a retreat, it's like you lost 2 cards, because most of the times he just retreats the Aeon and then kills some little poo and then you just have a big puin. Yay!
Anyways, I'll be curious to see how the Victor keeps doing now that the quick match has kind of died down. It's more but I'll be using it more in tournaments, and that'll be interesting to test against that. That'll be fun.
Yeah, that's the real test of a deck, I think, because it's a lot more consistent in the quality of play that you see there.
Yeah.
That's the one aspect I lack in testing is I'm not very present in the tournament scene, so I sort of rely on being able to post stuff up and have tournament players actually try the strategy.
We're here for you, buddy.
Indeed. All right, well, I think we're just about out of time for today, so let's go ahead.
Questions?
And I forgot to post the question thread, so we don't have any listeners' questions.
Oh, I have one.
Okay.
You know how many people did were they out there thinking that Keaven was really pronounced as Keaven?
Oh yeah, weigh in on that.
Yes, that's the discussion thread question. Let's have everyone weigh in on Kevin/Keaven's forum name. How many of you actually thought it was Keaven, and how many people have been thinking it was Keaven this whole time?
Oh, yeah.
Weigh in and let him know what you think on about how he pronounces his forum name.
Yeah, but we should let him have the credit of explaining why the way he writes it's Keaven still.
Here you go.
I mean, if you want, okay.
Heaven with a K, so.
Oh. Well, there you go.
So there you have it.
Yeah,
It's a different way of spelling my real name.
It's so deep and meaningful.
But it's not like Keaven, it's like Keaven.
So when you die, do you go to heaven?
Yeah, something like that.
I've got a listener question. Foils.
All right.
Oh, foils, yeah.
Yeah, what about them?
They're kind of distracting, aren't they?
Oh my god.
People are yelling about it. I don't see the problem, but
I like them.
Annoy a lot of people.
I enjoy them. I was just kind of echoing. I mean, if you have the full board full of them, it is kind of like, whoa.
I'll be honest. I am one of the people who thinks they're really annoying. I like the idea of having the digital foils in the game, and it's really cool that I have a bunch of them. But like, that animation is just really annoying, and I don't like it.
I think you slow it down.
It'd be good if you could disable it, but I mean, I play a lot of my matches on my phone, and I run at game speed 2 because I get more sync errors if I run it faster, so it doesn't cause the same problems at that speed.
Oh, I've never.
That's a good point.
Checked with that because I always run at game speed 4 because I just hate the game moving slowly. But I guess maybe if I turn the game speed down to 2, that animation would be way slower and way less like. Go look at it on game speed 4, and it's just this like constant swirling, like oh my god, why won't my card stop moving?
I'm looking at the difference right now, like playing against the computer. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Oh, all right. I guess I'm gonna go check it out now too.
Yeah.
So that's,
I'm not going to answer the question because I get secretly paid by Kyle. I'm sorry about you guys doing it for free.
Oh, I see. I might have to talk to Kyle about that since we know that he's planning on having a yacht by next year.
Oh man, game speed 1 is actually pretty pleasant.
Oh, you get paid too. Okay.
All right. So anyway, we really are running late here. So yes, weigh in on how Keaven pronounces his name. Keaven is his actual name. I'm having trouble even adjusting. And weigh in on what you guys think about the foils. Are they cool? Are they annoying? Do you love them? Do you not like them so much? Let us know. Until next time, this is the A1 Alliance signing out.